because New York's testing failures expose legal weed consumers to unsafe cannabis, and they're calling this a serious health threat. Well, I've been telling you guys all that weed in stores is total boof and you shouldn't smoke it. You're better off going and buying your weed from one of these little bodegas. But and now we got some proof in the pudding because a New York Cannabis Insider investigation has uncovered systemic problem in health failures at every level of the state's legal cannabis industry, from farmers to labs to state regulators, that experts say may pose a serious health threat to consumers. Top-selling weed strains available at licensed dispensaries from Western New York to Manhattan contain microbial levels 10 to 250 times higher than what's allowed under the state's rules for medical cannabis. The majority of these products should not have been allowed to be sold to consumers and may pose a serious health threat, said Sarah Athens, founder and CEO of New Jersey cannabis testing company True Labs for Cannabis. Among New York Cannabis Insider's findings, one, the state's requirement that weed be grown outside and not indoors has led to high levels of bacteria, yeast, and mold among products that experts say should not reach consumers. That's why you should grow indoor weed. Despite its public health and safety mandates, state regulators have maintained a relatively hands-off approach to enforcement and have left it up to farmers who struggle to survive to decide whether their products are safe or not. And three, dozens of publicly available test results show state-certified labs have consistently broken the rules for reporting pesticides, heavy metals, and other contaminants. Well, not surprised at all. A necessary medical notice at this point. They say health risks associated with smoking or consuming contaminated weed can include allergic reactions, sickness, and in extreme cases, death. The most susceptible to pesticide and microbial contaminants include women of reproductive age, immune-compromised patients with cancer and HIV, and patients with seizures and epilepsy. The Office of Cannabis Management is responsible, or should we call them the Office of Cannabis Mismanagement, is responsible for the rules around adult use and medical cannabis, and the agency does not agree that New York Cannabis Insider's findings indicate a significant health concern. Of course they wouldn't, because you're telling them all about themselves. But nonetheless, in a quote, a high yeast and mold count does not equate to a threat to public health, said OCM spokesperson Aaron Geltman. Growing cannabis outdoors is not much different than growing tomatoes or corn or lettuce. It's a natural environment with microorganisms, he says. But Athens counters people don't inhale moldy tomatoes. They usually just throw them out. Gelman added that the agency is aware of non-compliant test results but has not detected serious or systemic problems with testing accuracy or compliance. This despite roughly 40 publicly active lab reports for some of New York's best-known brands that clearly show non-compliant testing, misreported numbers, and missing results. In short, the integrity of the legal cannabis marketplace rests on the bedrock of safety, testing, and regulatory enforcement. Aaron says that she sees none of that play in New York. And in a quote, she says, I see a lack of proper regulations to ensure consumer safety, blatant violations of the current testing requirements, and a lack of enforcement to adhere to the current regulations, she said. Last year, the first of New York's adult use cannabis licenses, the state mandated its conditional marijuana cultivators grow outdoors to encourage sustainability, which just produces more boof, in my opinion. The OCM quickly discovered the outdoor rule had consequences. Growers couldn't pass lab tests for bacteria, yeast, and mold, and this was not a surprise because outdoor farming poses inherent contamination risks, which did catch people by surprise at the OCM, and especially their response to the problem. After listening to the farmers across the state, the OCM announced in November that it would remove test thresholds for these microbes, meaning sky's the limit, you guys. That's right. Jeff Rawson, president and founder of the nonprofit Institute of Cannabis Science, said he remembers hearing the news, and to quote, it was pretty famous, tossing out all of the microbial testing. Rawson said, I'd never seen such a clear expression of profits and a market over public health. It was really stark, he says. Despite having a team of scientists and licensed medical professionals on staff, the OCM also made licensed growers and processors responsible for deciding whether or not their products pose a public health risk. Well, of course, they're not going to say their products pose a possible health risk. And in a quote, it's the responsibility of the licensee to consider any risk to the health of consumers, says the OCM's testing guidance for growers and processors. On the same day, the OCM's announcement, Colin Decker, a cannabis industry consultant and founder of Seven Seals, SEAZ, says that, yes, the move would allow farmers to get more product onto the marketplace, but inevitably it will open a can of worms in regards to the standards, quality, and expectations that consumers would have for the flower and products they are looking to purchase in dispensaries, Decker said. And though nearly a year later, the agency still has no limit for yeast, mold, and bacteria, it does require those numbers to be reported in lab results so consumers know what they're ingesting, assuming consumers know how to read the scientific reports and understand the results or even realize that they're entitled to see them. The OCM told New York Cannabis Insider on Monday that it flags any adult use flower product with a total bacteria count above 1 million CFU/G or 10 times the limit for medical cannabis, and reaches out to licenses to, in quotes, help determine the appropriate remedial steps. It's unclear whether the agency applies the same formula with yeast and mold results, but 11 of 40 lab results for flower analyzed by New York Cannabis Insider had bacteria counts over 1 million CFU/G. One brand showed 24.7 million CFU/G, and 9 had yeast and mold counts over 100,000 CFU/G, with one brand showing 2.5 million CFU/G, 250 times the medical limit in its test results. And most of these products are still available for on shelves today in New York dispensaries. The rationale behind New York's cannabis legalization of 2021 was grounded in the idea of public health and safety, and the state continues to use that as a foundation to push consumers toward the legal market. And, oh man, OCM Executive Director Chris Alexander has reportedly hammered home the importance of tested safe products. And in February, Alexander said that the illicit storefronts are putting public health at risk, and enforcement against them will help stop the sale of contaminated products. He said in June that launching legal cannabis businesses with safe and tested licensed product is paramount. And he told the public in July that when shopping at a legal dispensary, you can purchase products you trust that were safely processed from seed to sale. Yet a product with lab results showing 250 times the medical limit for yeast and mold and non-compliant pesticide testing today sits on a New York City dispensary shelf. Everyone's favorite governor, Governor Kathy Hochul, made projecting public health one of 3 pillars of the state's Why Buy Legal campaign, a multi-million-dollar public relations effort announced in April to educate and explain to consumers why regulated cannabis products are safer, but flower with non-compliant heavy metals testing and 37 times the medical limit for yeast and mold can be legally purchased and delivered to parts of Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And while New York's multi-state medical cannabis companies published a study in November that described the illicit market as presenting serious health and safety threats to consumers, a top-selling legal cannabis brand in the Empire State has at least 13 non-compliant lab results tied to its products. At that point, you're talking about public health risk, consumer safety and regulatory, and market trust and confidence just growing down. Basically, confidence is just going down the drain, said Sarah Steinhoff, a licensed cultivator at Anata Farms. Did farmers sell this product because they're hurting on bills? Steinhoff asked. Did the labs not test correctly because there's no quality assurance or standardization? Did the state not regulate because they went too far into licensing, or are retailers responsible for putting bad weed on shelves without sampling it? From start to finish, it's a shit show, she said. But watching her competitors sell potentially dangerous products to recoup losses is really disheartening, she said. If that doesn't give you the incentive to go back to the black market, I don't know what does, she says. The reality of outdoor grows, not all bacteria and fungi are bad, and there are beneficial kinds that can be used safely in a variety of ways for cannabis cultivation, and those non-harmful microbes may lead to higher than normal bacteria, yeast, and mold counts among lab results, said Kristen Giddy, founder of CEO of Trichome Analytics in New Jersey. And this thing just goes on and on and on and on and on about all of this stuff that's being sold in New York. And in the essence of time, I'm going to digress on this for you, Gretchen, but I want to hear what you say about all this dirty, dirty, dirty outdoor weed being sold on compliant shelves throughout the state of New York.
Well, Jason Beck, I know you expect me to defend New York, but there's no defending this, and I have never strayed from my stance on providing clean, safe cannabis to consumers. And if New York can't do that, then they shouldn't be in business. This is bullshit. And the fact that they would lower their standards to get this product onto the shelves is also horseshit. I mean, this is a huge black eye on the OCM, the fact that they would allow this to go through. And we should be out there and we should be protesting them and doing everything necessary to make sure that patients get the products that they need.
And we should probably be also boycotting these legalized stores because all they're doing is selling contaminated product.
Is it the store's fault or is it the state's fault for allowing these labs to allow this product to go through?
It's the state's fault.
It's both.
It's the
it's
state's,
both.
No,
it's
the
both.
state, no,
it's
it's the state's
both.
fault. It's the state's fault ultimately because they haven't allowed for an adequate supply chain for these retailers to actually operate compliantly.
I'm going to just ask, how many people here? Wait, I'm going to ask, how many people lived in New York for maybe 3-4 years? Because I've been born and raised there. So as soon as I knew that they was going to go legit and legal with it, I knew they were not going to be able to, in any way, shape, or form, regulate anyone selling any marijuana. New York City is just too big of an area for someone can have a store. You won't even know it's marijuana being sold in there. Like, there's just too many locations for you to try to even think about doing something like that. So it's both. It's both because the store owners also and the dispensaries also aren't taking the time to care about the people that they're actually servicing. So because there are dispensaries that do care and they do test and they do everything they can to make sure that they're giving you great quality marijuana. And then you have bodegas, or not bodegas, but maybe some bodegas too, but you'll have the Arab stores and just local corner stores that do not care. And they call themselves dispensaries and they have booth weed in there. They're selling people stuff that they're spraying down full of chemicals and everything else. So there's a ton of people out there. New York City, yeah, I blame them, but I also blame the people that have the locations because they don't care about the people that they're servicing.
They do not.
Jason, can I ask a question?
Please, Gretchen.
Just so I understand this correctly. The weed is not good because the state lowered their standards. It's not that these actually failed lab tests.
These all would fail. These all failed lab tests. Yes. No. These all failed lab tests.
So they did not meet the standards even after they got rid of microbials and all that crap that they actually took out from it.
Correct. They still
didn't. I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
So that it's not because they changed the standards. It's they still don't even meet those standards.
Well, there is no standards if you remove the standards, Gretchen.
No, that's my point, Jason, is if the labs are not at fault because they changed the standards, and so then that puts the onus on the OCM. But if these folks still failed the lab standards, even after the OCM lowered the standards, then it would be on the labs and the businesses who are accepting this cannabis. Do you see what I'm saying?
I don't really know if I'm following exactly what you're trying to put down exactly,
Dale,
Gretchen.
You get my logic,
but,
Dale. What do you think?
I do. And in California, what they did is you don't have a certificate of analysis that passes all the standards. You can't take it from the distribution center to a retail store. You just can't do it.
Yeah, and New York is allowing that.
Well, I know they are.
Well, they changed the standard. That's my question.
That's my point. They shouldn't have changed their standards if they want to lament in the fact that they're all about public health and
they're
clean
Democrats.
meds and all this BS.
My point is, Jason, were these stores handed failed lab tests and said, no problem, we'll still take the product?
Yes.
That's my question.
That's what it sounds like to me. And basically the state is saying that we're not going to enforce on it. That's how I'm interpreting all of this.
That's too many people have sensitivity to molds. I just can't even imagine. I've back in the day, way back in like the 80s, you come across some moldy weed, and I I'm sensitive to that shit. I would detect it immediately. It'd make me feel bad. Like I can't believe the state's trying to say that it's just fine to let that go through and
Yeah.
pass.
Well, you know what? You know what, Stone? I
Me,
mean,
I smoke it to see if I get extra high.
oh man, no, you're not. You're gonna get extra sore throat from all that harshness.
Yeah, that's bad
Yeah,
stuff.
no. This is bad, and you know what? I mean, it seems like the cleanest place for you to go and buy clean meds in the state of New York is actually to go to one of these MSOs because they are tighterly regulated than these adult use stores.
No, in New York City, I'm a New Yorker. If you want some good bud, don't go to any stores because even though it look good, even though the prices may be good, a lot of them are sprayed full of chemicals. Find somebody out there that's really skinny, has dark lips and yellow eyes, and he will take you to the promised land. Go to the block.
That's the secret right
Find
there,
a
huh?
guy that is malnutrition with
Mm-hmm.
lips that look like a brown sofa and eyes that look like urine fresh in the morning. And I
Oh
promise you,
boy.
he will take you to the promised land. He's not going to walk you into a corner store or a store. He's going to take you to his man's. It's going to be in a project building. His man's going to open the door and ask you what you want. And he's not going to open up his shirt or trench coat or none of that. He's going to dig his hands in his pants. He's going to pull his hands out. Oh, no, that's old. He's going to dig his hands in his pocket. He's going to pull his hands out. He's going to be like, pick one. He's going to let you pick one and you're going to go about your day. You're going to find some good marijuana. And it's going to come from California.
You know that.
Mark my words.
That is
And
true.
They're going to call
all right,
that
I want to
Lauren
ask one more
Boebert,
question.
right?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
And this
Gretchen.
is-
What's the
this is for
question?
my other question is for the folks who cultivate because I do not. Is this also a problem because of this cannabis having sat for over a year? Is that the problem as well?
Well, that's
Would that
I mean
contribute to these issues?
that definitely can
Depends on how
attribute
it's
to
stored.
it. Yeah. Well, Dale, we've shown how it's stored, Dale.
Contracts between cultivators and distributors for who's responsible and how do you store it because you can get it moldy in storage. But generally, it just degrades. The cannabinoids degrade if you store it properly. It just gets old. It really is boof at that point. These arguments, though, they're hard to understand because California and Colorado have set standards up that go back years and years. And if you're going to smoke something, I have immunocompromised people in my family. I don't want them smoking shit that's going to fail these tests because they're going to get sick. So the standards have been set. California has a lot more stringent. They got Prop 65 warnings here. You can get sued if that ends up in one of these products they sell in the store. A lot of other protections, but a lot of it's overkill. You know, I've been smoking weed for over 50 years, and I didn't give two shits what was in it. If I looked at it and it didn't look moldy, we smoked it. Okay. Now you got all these rules and regulations, and a lot of it's overkill. But if it's medical and you're selling it to people who could get sick from this shit, we got rules. Don't let it go into a store. Just
But if it's
that's
not
it.
medical, who gives a shit? Get high. It burns. As long as you're burning it, that's why I don't know. I came up different. I came up in an era where we did have seeds in it. And we were introduced to California weed through Biggie Smalls and his music. And then we started to have good weed coming to New York. And if we smoked bad weed. And
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like I've seen weed with mold in it before. Look, you know what you do? You take a little lighter, you roast a little bit of the mold, and then you start breaking that up too. Jason probably say, "No, that you burn the weed. I don't want to taste like ass."
Yeah, nasty.
You can just see him standing there, but
Nasty.
back then we didn't really have financial resources to say, "Well, this weed doesn't look good. I'm gonna just throw it away." It was
Yeah,
like,
and there
well,
was
you better
no
smoke it because
and there was no education system. Like there's been tons of times that people have purchased weed that is filled with powdery mildew, and people just think that it's crystals. Okay, and so there is no real way to educate, or has been a way to educate the masses as to like quality and traits to look for when purchasing cannabis, which has also led to the reason why the average consumer only looks to the THC number, which doesn't make any sense to purchase cannabis in the first place.
because
Well,
they're not,
hasn't the packaging regulations also helped or hurt people being able to actually look at the product that they're getting?
Yes, 100%, because having to have it packaged as a consumer packaged good as opposed to being able to offer it like a deli style type of thing where you would just weigh it and then package it for them there has definitely done that. And also, too, it has also diminished the quality of the cannabis because cannabis stays fresher longer when it's all stored together as opposed to be broken off into these different packaged metrics. You good now, Gretchen?
Just more shit for me to fight for.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Keep
Perfect.
employing me,
You-
people.
Anytime.
good, girl.
Anytime. We
Just
we
keep
love
going.
we love to keep women working around here. That's for sure.
Oh my God. I'm
Oh,
going
yeah.
to stab you through your face.
Yeah.